When people hear the name Sylvester Stallone, they don't think about weakness. They don't think about sickness. They don't think about pain. They think about fists, muscles, that stare. They think about Rocky Balboa standing in the ring, blood on his face, refusing to fall. They think about John Rambo walking through explosions like he can't even feel fire. For decades, Stallone built a reputation as the guy who could take a beating and still get back up. That wasn't just acting. That became his identity. But here's the part most people don't talk about. The real man behind those characters has been fighting battles his whole life. And now, at 79 years old, his body isn't the same. The years of punishment, the surgeries, the injuries, the stress, it all adds up. You can only push a machine so far before it starts breaking down. And Stallone pushed his body harder than almost anyone in Hollywood. Before the fame, before the money, before the statues and red carpets. There was a baby born in New York City in 1946, and something went wrong. Doctors used forceps during delivery. The procedure damaged nerves in his face. That's why his lower lip droops. That's why his speech sounds the way it does. That slight slur that people once laughed at? That wasn't an acting choice. That was nerve damage from birth. Imagine starting life already marked as different. Kids can be cruel. And when you look or sound different, you become a target fast. He didn't grow up feeling like a future star. He grew up feeling like an outsider. And that feeling never fully left him. Now at 79, when health issues show up and the body doesn't respond the way it used to, it's not just about aging. It's about a lifetime of damage. Old injuries coming back. Surgeries that left scars deeper than what cameras ever showed. Muscles that once defined him now carrying decades of wear and tear. People see the legend. Sylvester Stallone didn't enter the world in a peaceful way. He was born in Hell's Kitchen, New York. Back then, it wasn't the polished neighborhood people know today. It was rough, loud, tough, the kind of place where you learned quickly how to defend yourself. But before he even had the chance to learn anything, life hit him. During his birth, doctors used forceps to pull him out. The move damaged nerves on the left side of his face. It left part of his face partially paralyzed. That's why his smile is uneven. That's why his speech has that heavy, dragged sound. As a kid, he didn't understand what happened. He just knew other kids noticed. They stared. They mocked him. They called him names. School wasn't a safe place. It was survival. At home, things weren't much better. His parents had a messy relationship. There was fighting, tension, distance. He often felt caught in the middle of two people who didn't know how to love each other properly. When your home doesn't feel safe and school doesn't feel safe, where do you go? He grew up feeling like he didn't belong anywhere. That kind of childhood does something to a person. It builds anger. It builds walls. Stallone became tough early, not because he wanted to impress anyone, but because he had to protect himself. He got into fights. A lot of them. He was expelled from multiple schools. Some say over 10. He wasn't a calm, focused student. He was restless, frustrated, acting out. Teachers saw a troublemaker. They didn't see a kid who felt broken. Imagine being told over and over that you're not smart enough, not normal enough, not good enough. That sticks. For a while, he was sent to live with relatives. His parents separated. Stability wasn't part of his childhood. He moved around. Different schools. Different environments. No solid ground. But here's something interesting. Even when everything felt unstable, he found one thing that made sense. His body. Weightlifting. Exercise. Physical strength. When he trained, he felt control. When he built muscle, he felt powerful. Nobody laughed at him in the gym. Nobody cared how he spoke. They cared how much he could lift. That's where the idea of becoming physically strong took root. It wasn't about vanity. It was about protection. It was about proving something. Deep down, he carried embarrassment about his face and voice. So he decided if people were going to look at him, they'd look at his strength. That mindset didn't come from Hollywood. It came from a kid in New York who was tired of being bullied. But even with that growing strength, he still felt lost. Acting wasn't even a serious plan yet. He didn't grow up thinking, I'll be a movie star. He grew up thinking, I need to survive. And that survival mode never really turned off. Even now, decades later, when he walks into a room, you can sense that guarded energy, that alertness. Like the kid who had to watch his back never fully disappeared. The world eventually saw him as invincible. But the little boy with the damaged nerve and the broken home? He never forgot what it felt like to be laughed at. By the time Sylvester Stallone hit his teenage years, he wasn't some focused kid with a clear dream. He was angry, confused, trying to figure out where he fit in. He bounced between homes after his parents separated. One minute he was with his father. Another time he was with his mother. The rules kept changing. The environment kept changing. But that feeling of not belonging, that stayed the same. He struggled in school. Not because he wasn't capable, but because he didn't care. Or maybe it felt safer not to care. When you already believe you're different, it's easier to act like you don't want approval than to try and fail again. Sports became his outlet. He threw himself into weight training. He trained hard. Not casually. Not for fun. He trained like someone trying to build armor. Every pound of muscle felt like protection. The stronger he got, the less people messed with him. But there was still something missing. He didn't grow up in a house where people talked about dreams. Nobody was sitting him down asking what he wanted to become. So he drifted for a while. At one point, he went to school in Switzerland. That's where he first stepped into acting in a serious way. It wasn't some magical moment. It was more like curiosity. He tried it, and something clicked. On stage, people weren't laughing at his voice. They were listening. That was new. For the first time, that slurred speech and crooked smile weren't weaknesses. They made him stand out. They made him different in a way that worked. Still, it wasn't smooth. He wasn't instantly talented. He wasn't some polished performer. He was raw, but he had intensity. And intensity can't be taught. When he came back to the United States, he studied drama at the University of Miami for a short time. But again, he didn't stick around long. College didn't hold him. He left before finishing. Instead, he made a decision that most people around him probably thought was crazy. He moved to New York to chase acting. No connections. No money. No backup plan. Just belief. And maybe a little bit of desperation. Because deep down, acting wasn't just a career idea. It was a way to prove something. To the kids who mocked him. To the teachers who gave up on him. To his parents who were too busy fighting to really see him. He didn't want to just succeed. He wanted to matter. New York didn't welcome him with open arms. It knocked him down fast. He auditioned again and again. Rejection after rejection. Casting directors didn't see a leading man. They saw a guy with a strange voice and an uneven face. Money ran out quickly. There were nights he slept in the Port Authority bus terminal. Cold benches. No privacy. Just him and a jacket. He didn't tell people about that part later. But it happened. At one point, he was so broke he had to sell his dog. That dog meant everything to him. It was his only real companion during those lonely months. But he needed money to eat. So he sold him for $40 outside a liquor store. Imagine how low you have to feel to do that. He took small roles wherever he could. Even did a softcore adult film early on because he needed the money. It wasn't about pride anymore. It was survival. But something was building inside him during those hard months. He started writing. Late at night. In tiny apartments. On borrowed time. Then one night, he watched a boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner. Wepner wasn't supposed to last long against Ali. But he did. He got knocked down. He got up. He kept going. That fight lit something up in Stallone. He went home and started writing a script about an underdog boxer who just wanted a shot. He wrote it in 3 days. That script was Rocky. Studios liked it, but they didn't want him in it. They offered him money to sell the script. Good money, especially for a guy who had been sleeping in bus stations. But he said no. He wanted to star in it. They thought he was crazy. Eventually, they agreed to a smaller deal. Low budget. Limited expectations. When Rocky came out in 1976, it exploded. It won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Stallone was nominated for Best Actor and Best Original Screenplay. The same guy who was laughed at for his voice was now standing at the Oscars. But fame doesn't erase the years before it. And it doesn't protect you from what comes next. After Rocky, everything changed. Money, fame, attention. But there was pressure now. Huge pressure. He didn't want to be a one-hit wonder. So he worked harder. Bigger movies. Bigger muscles. Bigger action. That's when Rambo happened. The physical transformation was intense. Stallone trained like a machine. Hours every day. Extreme diets. Endless reps. He pushed his body to limits that weren't sustainable. And he got hurt. A lot. During different films, he broke bones, tore muscles, damaged his back. He once said filming fight scenes for Rocky left him hospitalized. But he kept going, because his image depended on it. Hollywood loved the tough guy persona, the invincible hero, and he felt responsible to maintain that. So he ignored pain. He worked through injuries. He did his own stunts when he probably shouldn't have. Over time, surgeries piled up. Neck issues, back problems, shoulder repairs. Each film left something behind in his body. But on camera, he still looked unstoppable. Behind the scenes, he was starting to feel the price. In 2012, Stallone's world changed in a way no action scene could prepare him for. His son, Sage Stallone, was found dead at 36 years old. No parent is ready for that call. He didn't go on a press tour about his grief. He didn't sit down for emotional interviews. He stayed quiet. But people close to him said it crushed him. There's a different kind of pain when you lose a child. It doesn't fade with time. It doesn't heal cleanly. He tried to keep working, tried to stay strong publicly. But something shifted. You could see it in his eyes. The intensity was still there, but it felt heavier, slower. Around the same time, he faced ups and downs in his marriage. Long relationships aren't easy under the spotlight. Rumors, public scrutiny, tension. It all adds up. And while he was dealing with emotional loss, his body kept aging. Old injuries didn't disappear. They got worse. Back pain became chronic. Neck problems flared up. Surgeries weren't just for show anymore. They were necessary. The man who built his life on strength was now waking up every day with stiffness and pain. He still trained, still tried to stay in shape. But recovery takes longer at 60, and even longer at 70. Now, at 79, those decades of hits, physical and emotional, are written all over him. But he doesn't complain publicly. He just keeps moving, even if it hurts. As the years moved into his late 60s and early 70s, something changed in Hollywood. The industry got younger, faster, louder. Superheroes took over. CGI replaced a lot of the old-school action style that built careers like his. For a while, it looked like the tough guy era might be over. But Sylvester Stallone wasn't ready to fade into the background. He came back to what made him famous. He returned to Rocky through the movie Creed. But this time, he wasn't the fighter in the ring. He was the aging trainer, the mentor, the man whose body had already been through war. And something about that role felt real. In Creed, Rocky battles cancer. On screen you see him weak. You see him tired. You see him facing his own mortality. And for a lot of fans, it didn't feel like acting anymore. It felt personal. Stallone delivered one of the most emotional performances of his career. He even received major award nominations again. For a moment, it looked like everything had come full circle. But behind the scenes, his real body wasn't as strong as it once was. Decades of fight scenes had left their mark. Heavy lifting, repeated blows, falls, crashes, surgeries. He had multiple neck and back operations over the years. At one point, after filming intense scenes, he required serious medical treatment for spinal issues. Those aren't small injuries. Those are the kind that follow you for life. Recovery at 30 is different from recovery at 70. He still trained. He still lifted. But the recovery time stretched longer. Soreness didn't disappear overnight. Some pain just stayed. The industry noticed the change too. Roles shifted. Less physical dominance. More supporting characters. Less running. More standing still. And for someone who built his identity on strength, that shift isn't easy. He wasn't just aging. He was adjusting to a version of himself that didn't match the poster on people's walls. There comes a point when the body stops whispering and starts shouting. In his late 70s, Stallone's health concerns became more visible. Public appearances showed a slower walk, a stiffer posture. His face, already shaped by nerve damage from birth, carried deeper lines and heavier tension. Old injuries don't disappear. They stack. Years of shoulder strain, knee stress, back trauma, neck compression. Every punch thrown on screen came with impact. Even when choreography is controlled, the body absorbs shock. He has spoken openly in the past about breaking bones during filming, about being hospitalized after fight scenes, about needing metal plates inserted during recovery from injuries. At this age, metal and screws inside your body don't feel lighter. They feel heavier. Chronic pain became part of daily life. Not dramatic pain, not screaming pain, but that constant, dull ache that doesn't fully leave. And then there's the nerve damage he's carried since birth. As people age, nerve issues can become more noticeable. Muscle control changes. Speech patterns shift slightly. Fatigue increases. Rumors started online. People speculated about serious illnesses. Some exaggerated, some completely false. But the reason those rumors gain traction is simple. Fans aren't used to seeing him vulnerable. When someone has represented physical power for over 4 decades, even a small sign of weakness feels shocking. But aging isn't weakness. Still, that doesn't mean it's easy. There were reports of additional procedures in recent years tied to long-term injuries. He hasn't shared every detail publicly, and that's his right. But it's clear his body has been through more than most. He once built himself into a machine. Now that machine needs maintenance constantly. At 79, life looks different. The film sets are fewer. The training sessions are shorter. The schedule isn't as packed. He spends more time with his daughters. More time at home. Less chasing. More sitting still. But slowing down can be uncomfortable for someone wired to fight. Physical discomfort lingers. Some mornings are harder than others. Stiff joints. Limited flexibility. Back pain that flares up unexpectedly. The strong jawline that once symbolized dominance now sits above a body that requires careful management. He's had to adjust workouts to avoid further injury. No more extreme stunts. No more reckless training sessions. The risk isn't worth it anymore. And mentally, there's something else that comes with this stage of life. You look back, not in a poetic way, not in a speech-making way, just quietly. You think about the early days, the bus station, selling the dog, writing Rocky in 3 days. You think about your son. That loss doesn't disappear with time. Grief and physical pain sometimes mix together in ways people don't see. He still posts on social media, still smiles in photos, still carries himself with pride. But there's a softness there now. Less edge, more weight. The body that once carried entire franchises is now carefully managed day by day. And for someone who made a career out of never quitting, slowing down can feel like a different kind of fight. Today, at 79, Sylvester Stallone isn't the man sprinting up the steps in Philadelphia. He's not the unstoppable warrior charging through explosions. He's an older man with decades of mileage. But here's the thing. The fight in him didn't disappear. It just changed. He still shows up when he commits to something. He still trains, even if it's lighter. He still carries discipline. That mindset built during a rough childhood never went away. Physically, though, there's no denying reality. The spine surgeries, the joint wear, the nerve damage from birth, the emotional stress from loss, the years of pushing his body past normal limits. It adds up. Some days are good. Some days are slow. He's not indestructible. He never was. The difference now is that people can see it. But even with the slower walk and the quieter schedule, there's something steady about him. Not loud, not flashy, just steady. The same kid who refused to sell Rocky without starring in it is still there. Only now, the punches aren't thrown in a ring. They're handled quietly, one day at a time.